2003 through 2009 Mercedes E320 front door window regulator replacement. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you through the steps for replacing the window regulators. So we're going to get started by unscrewing the lock knob here. Once you get that unscrewed, the next step is we're going to remove the T20 Torx bolt here and pull this little cover off right here. Now underneath the pull handle is a cover right here that we need to pop off. So I just use my fingers and kind of peeled my fingers behind it and then pulled the cover off like this. Once you get the cover off, then there's going to be two T30 Torx bolts that we need to remove. Once we have those two bolts removed, and then we can pull off the tweeter cover here. So you kind of just pry with your fingers and pull it off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tuck it in through over the window like this right here for right now. And then there's going to be a little panel on the right hand side here that we need to pop off. Once again, I just used my fingers and just pulled the panel off like this. And then behind there is going to be one more T30 Torx bolt that we need to remove. Now with a panel popping tool, I'm going to start right here next to the latch. And there's a little clip that we're going to pry open up. So I'm going to use the panel popping tool to get it started. And then you move down about an inch, and then there's another clip, and you pop it. And once you get a couple of the clips pulled out, then you can just put your hands underneath and pull the door panel out toward you like this all the way around the door until it's free. So once you get the door panel free like this, you're going to grab on the left and right side of the door panel and wiggle and lift upwards and then pull out towards you. It's hooked on a little channel at the top. After that, we're going to disconnect the cable and some electrical connectors for the power window switch and seat. So now with the door panel pulled off, I kind of have it resting on my knees here, and we need to disconnect these electrical connectors. So you'll just squeeze the tabs and pull off on all the connectors. You don't have to worry about which one plugs into which. They only plug into one terminal, so you can't get them mixed up. So to go ahead and unplug them one at a time. And the hardest one, and the one you have to be careful with, is this blue one here, the ribbon one. If you damage this one, then you'll have to replace the whole switch and stuff, and it's a pain in the butt. So be careful with that one. That one will require a flat blade screwdriver to get it out. You're also going to need to unplug the speaker down below, and it just has two squeeze tabs on the side of the connector, and you'll squeeze those and pull upwards and off. Now with all the electrical connectors disconnected for the door panel, we need to disconnect the pull handle cable here for the door handle. And to do that, what you're going to do is grab the cable right here, and you're going to pull the cable like this. And once it clears the little plastic thing, you'll pull it upwards out of the groove and then pull it off the hook like this. Now you can just flip your little tweeter back inside here and just let it rest. The next step is we need to get this weather barrier off. And the way I do it is I just start in a corner and I work in small little increments, and I peel it back like this with my fingers. And I just work very small little increments at a time and keep working it way down and around the door panel. And we're going to peel it all the way. We're just going to peel it back to the module here. We're not going to disconnect this module or anything like that. We're going to leave it connected. Okay, now that you got the weather barrier peeled back, what we need to do next is detach the glass from the window regulator. To do that, we need to slide the window up and down. Since the window regulator is broken, you should be able to do this by hand. And then we're going to remove or loosen the bolt here, and then we're going to loosen the second bolt here on the other side of the glass. And if you can't get to it over here, you can usually slide the windows up into a more manageable position to get to the bolts and loosen those bolts up. So once you get those all unbolted, what you do next is you kind of grab the glass and kind of push it or pull the glass up all the way till it's in its full upright position. And then once you get it all the way up to the top, what I like to do is use a little bit of packing tape like this, and I'll run a strip of packing tape over the door and over the door frame and tape the window in the upright position. Now we're going to unbolt the window motor from the regulator by removing the three T20 Torx bolts and pulling the motor off or prying it off with a screwdriver like this. Once you have the window motor unbolted, you can just let it hang like this. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to drill out the rivets here. There's going to be one here at the top. Then on the opposite side, there's going to be one there and two at the bottom down here. And then we also need to remove this bracket here in the middle of the door frame so we can get the window regulator out. And it's going to have three rivets that we need to drill out also. So we're going to drill those out. And before you drill them out, what I do is use a little punch, like the little center punch like this, and punch the center portion of the rivet. There's a little metal piece tab in there. You need to push that through a little bit. Once you get that punched in a little bit, then you're going to use a drill bit that's bigger than the head of the rivet. and you're going to drill the rivet until the head of the rivet comes off. So you're going to drill all the heads of the rivets off like this. So you'll do the one here, 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 here to get the center bracket out. Then we'll do the far right where the motor mounts. There's 2 in the bottom and 1 in the top. Once you get the heads of the rivets all drilled out, then you can use a little center punch right here and punch the rivet all the way through inside into the door. So you'll punch it out, and I just use a punch and a hammer, and then the window regulator is free. Then you have to lift it up and out of this little hook here that it's mounted on and just lay it in there. You're going to do the same thing for the bracket here. You'll punch off the rivets, take the bracket off, set it aside. Then the right side of the window regulator, you'll kind of twist it and kind of angle it like this to get it out of the door. You kind of squeeze the 2 parts together, and once you get them kind of squeezed together, it makes them thinner, and then you can kind of work with it and angle it until you get it coming out of the door. It's a pretty large gap here, so it's pretty easy to get the old regulator out. Once you get the old regulator out, what we need to do next is clean out all the bits and debris that fell in the inside of the door. If you don't clean this out, when you shut the door, it'll rattle and it'll drive the customer crazy. So in this video, I'm doing the driver's door, and this is the part numbers for it. I will link it up in the description of the video. So once you got the regulator unboxed, you're going to take it like this and feed it back into the door. And what I did was kind of squeeze it together like this. And then you angle it in the door, and then as you get it in there, you kind of rotate it upwards into a vertical position and then fan the 2 parts apart. Once you get the regulator in, there's a little hook at the top of the regulator that hooks over these little notches here in the door. Once you have those hooked over, then you can line up the rivet holes, and then you can install new rivets. And they do not come in the kit. You have to get those separately. I'll link those up also. And so you'll line up all the rivet holes, and then you're going to rivet the rivets back in. I'm going to use an air-powered rivet gun. I will link this up in the description of the video. This is an amazing tool, makes life easy having this tool. So you'll just slip it on the rivet just like this, pull the trigger, then you'll pull the lower trigger and push the rivet gun back in, and then pull the trigger again. And it kind of like re-grips it and pulls again until it breaks the rivet off. So you're going to line up all the rivets on both top and bottom and go ahead and rivet the window regulator back in. Once the window regulator is riveted back in, then you can put the support bracket here in the middle back in, start the rivets, and then rivet that back in. Once you got it all riveted in like this, the next step is we need to loosen the bolts here that come with the new regulator. They come bolted squeezed together, so we need to back them off a little bit and spread them open. So then after that, we're going to take the packing tape off the glass and slide the glass back down into those little channels. As you slide it down, you want to make sure it stays into the felt on the far left-hand side. Then you'll slide it down to these channels here. You may have to use your fingers here to kind of line them up and spread them apart. And then you'll push the window downwards until it fully seats into the rubber grommets here. After that, we're going to make sure that the window is fully back right here and level. And then we'll tighten up the 2 screws down here that hold the glass. So these screws that we need to tighten up are just tighten them till they're snug. You don't want to over tighten them. So you'll do it by feel. And once you get them tightened down till they're good and snug, then what I like to do is I like to grab the top of the window and give it a pull to make sure that the window is not going to pull back out of the little rubber grommets. After that's done, we can take the motor here and re-bolt it to the window regulator. So you'll line it up with the tabs here. And to help line up the gears in the motor in the window regulator, you may have to wiggle the window up or down slightly to help seat the motor into the window regulator. Once you get it seated into the window regulator, then you can install the 3 T30 torx bolts and tighten those up. Now we're ready to flip the weather barrier back into position. And then you're going to make sure you feed the lock cylinder through, and also the cable that goes for the handle goes through the little hole in the foam pad here. So feed it through the little hole, and then you can reuse the sticky stuff and just push it on until it's all seated onto the door the way you took it off. And now I'm just going to flip the tweeter back out of the way. Now we're ready to reinstall the door panel. So you're going to plug in all the electrical connectors back into the module here. So the blue one goes to the blue and the white goes to the white. These smaller ones here, they are labeled. And then the rest of them, you can kind of just figure them out by how they're shaped. They only go in one way. So you'll plug in all the little connectors. Once you have all the connectors plugged into the module, the next we need to plug in the speaker down here. So make sure you plug that in. Now we're ready to reinstall the cable here for the handle. So you're going to hook it into the handle like this. So you'll make sure you get the hook part hooked in. Then you'll rotate it around, and then you'll pull the cable again like this until it fits in the slot, and then you'll release the tension. Now we're ready to reinstall the door panel. There's this edge right here hooks over the top of the door frame and the weather stripping here. So it hooks on the top. So what we're going to do first is line up the lock tab through the hole on the door panel, and then you make sure your tweeter here is not pinched, the wire's not pinched. So then you hook the door panel over the window frame here. There's a little groove that it sits in, and you kind of can see it. So you'll hook it on the top. And once it's hooked on the top like this, all the way across, then we'll look through the side of the door here and make sure our clips are lined up, and kind of wiggle the door up and down or whatever, and push the door panel on until all the clips clip back in. So as you get all the clips lined back up with the door frame here, then you just lightly tap the door panel in and push the door panel until it secures. Once the door panel is secure, you can go ahead and reinstall the lock knob by twisting it onto its snug. After you get that installed, then you can reinstall the two torques here and the one torque bolt over here, the T30s, and tighten those all up. Then you can take the cover here and reinstall it by just lining it up and just pushing it in until it locks into place. So now we're going to reinstall the tweeter here. So you'll line it up with the door frame here, and you kind of push towards the right and push inwards at the same time. So kind of in towards the frame and in at the same time, and it locks into place. Now we can reinstall the cover that went under the pull handle. It has these little hooks here. So they're going to go upwards in the upright position. So you'll slide it under the pull handle and slide it up into position. And once you get it slid up, then you just push in until it locks into place. Now we can reinstall this molding that went around the lock cylinder here. So it has a little hook here. Also, it's going to hook on the actual metal portion of the door frame, not the door panel. So you'll hook it, and then you'll push it upwards and then re-bolt the screw. Now you can turn the ignition switch on, run your window up and down, make sure everything works. You also want to check the speakers, make sure they're all performing the way they were before you took it apart. And that'll complete the job of replacing the window regulator on a 2003 through 2009 Mercedes E320. It's the W211 model. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos. Encourage you to subscribe. Invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this. And to remind you that I'll link up all the parts and tools in the description of the video. Thank you again for watching.